Hello everyone. In this video, I will demonstrate how you can install Nutanix Community Edition on your home lab. Um, I'm gonna install the Community Edition on ESXI server. I will have one ESXI server. I will create three virtual machines. Each virtual machine represents one Nutanix node. You can do the same on the ESXI or even VMware Workstation. If you don't have plenty of resources, I suggest you just create one node. At the end, it will be the same thing if you are going to if you are just going to practicing Nutanix. The only downtime or downside of having one node will be as when you are going to upgrade or if you're going to simulate a failure on the one node. Because you will have one node, so you will not be able to see it. So if you don't have plenty of resources, I suggest you just stick to one node. Otherwise, you can build three nodes and build a cluster on top of three nodes. So to get the community edition of Nutanix, the first step you have to go to next.nutanix.com and register your email over there. So if we come over here and we go to next.nutanix.com, so you simply go to click on the right side login. And then if you don't have the email address, you simply just click on sign up now. You have to fill your information over here and then um, just click on submit. You need to provide a corporate email address. You cannot put a Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, those sort of personal email addresses. Once you have done that, you will go to this link, which is if you search community edition, you will come to across the same link as well. Okay, so we click on this one. Now join and download at no cost. So this step needs to be done once you have already done this one and you are already activated your account over here. You will use the same email which you have used here at the my.nutanix or next.nutanix. The same email you will provide over here, and then you will receive an email, something similar to this one, which will, if you click on it, it will take you to this side over here, which you will have the installer ISO. Alright, so we are going to use the installer ISO. At the same time, if you see over here in the same page, you will have Nutanix Vert.io, which is it's kind of like VMware tools if I want to compare it, but it's different. You will use it if you are going to install Windows 64-bit or 86 86 installer. So if you're going to install the Windows on top of the Nutanix as a virtual machines, this Vert.io needs to be available. It will be kind of like a drivers you're providing to the Windows OS to recognize the hypervisor, which will be AHV. Mm, that would be all. Okay. Um, let's give it a try now. So in my environment, I have ESXi server. I have around 128 GB memory. Um, I have three hard drive, one HD, one SSD, and one NVM. I have already created three nodes, but I will show you how to create one node. If you are using the ESXi to for your home lab and you want to install the community edition on top of it, you need to do two changes before you go ahead with the installation and creating the virtual machines. So the first change will be on top of the networking. On the same port group which you're going to assign to your nodes, just click on it and then edit settings. On security, you need to make sure that promiscuous mode and MAC address changes and forge transmits, all of them are accepts. Otherwise, the communication between the AHV and CVM will not work, or your communication from your host to from your computer to the CVM will not work. So you have to put the security in accept for all three. When you're going to install or create a virtual machines, or let me just do one, so you guys will know better. I'm gonna just create this one, name it as a Nutanix CE test. Guess OS Linux. We can keep this one. Other Linux 64 bit. Click next. Okay. Let's click on data store one, which is NVMe for me. I'll click next. Customize settings. On CPU, I'm gonna give it a 4 cores. If you have more than that, you can be my guest and provide it, because the Nutanix is kind of like hungry for resources. So the more you provide, the more and better performance you will get. You need to enable hardware virtualizations. What else? On memory, I'm gonna provide 24 GB. If you have more, please do provide to it. As I said, the more you have, the more memory will be presented to your virtual machines when you are doing nested virtualizations. So for the hard disk, we need to create minimum 3 disk. So one disk will be for the AHV. You can assign 64 GB to it or more, but 64 GB will be more than enough. You can even if you are installing this Nutanix on top of a physical server, you can install the 64 GB on top of the USB disk. But if you are using a USB disk, please make sure it's a USB version 3. It needs to be fast enough, or even if you're using SD card. So I will just use 64 GB. Let it be thin provisioned. I'm gonna just create one directory, community test, select. I have assigned already to the same location. Data store ISO. I have already downloaded the same disk, the Phonics from the portal, so I select that one. Click next. Finish. I will select it again to create the other two disks. Okay, add hard disk, and then add hard disk again. Okay, so for hot tier or the CVM, I'm gonna put 200 GB. You can assign more, it's up to you. Um, I will make sure it's on the fast disk. SSD. And then we have the cold tier. I'm gonna put this one 500 GB. Obviously, you can assign more than this if you want. 10 provisioning. Okay. Awesome. Save it. Oh, one last check. One other thing we have to modify here on the VM options. If we go to advanced, sorry, edit configuration, ID. Okay, so we need to enable the disk UUID. Um, this is because if the serial number of the disk is not presented inside the virtual machines, um, the installation will fail. So all right, that's it. Let's fire it up. Okay, it's going to boot from the provided ISO. Okay, so we have reached the setup page. The mouse will not work over here, so you have to mm, be friendly with the keyboard. The on Nutanix community editions, you will have only the option to install the AHV, or it only comes with the AHV as a hypervisor, so it's already selected for you. Just use the tab or the arrow keys to go to the menus. As I have mentioned, we have created 3 disks on our virtual machines. You can see the serial number is showing. That means because of the modification we have made inside the advanced parameter on the virtual machines. So we have SDA, SDB, and SDC. If you see on the right side, under the type, we are seeing all of them as SSD, even though one of them is hard drive. And then we have the use case for it. It's H stands for the hypervisor, and then D stands for data, and C for CVM. So this H over here, hypervisor 68, which is fine with me. But the D and C, I want to replace them. So I'm gonna select the D and then press C, and then on the last one I will select D for data. If you see, you can have DLC, which is you can have two disks for the C and then the fourth one for the data. This is for in case if you want your CVM to have a dual disk. Usually, or by architecture, Nutanix CVM does have two disk for the boot actually. But here we're just going to go with a simple installation. So I select this one as a D. Click tab on the host IP address. I will provide the IP address. This will be the IP address which will be assigned to a hypervisor here AHV. So 68.0.20, let's say. On CVM, I'm going to provide the IP address for the CVM 192.68.0.21, and obviously our gateway, that one. Sorry, subnet mask should be here, and then the gateway. So I'll go to next page. You have to go down through the CEULA, basically to the end of this license agreement, and then you can go to the next page, which is the start of the installations. So tab space to select I accept the end user, and then start. Alright, so if you are thirsty, it's a good time to have a cup of tea or coffee because it's gonna take a bit of time. I'm gonna pause the video, and once it's finished I'll be back again. Okay, it has requested us to reboot the virtual machines. We have done that. Now it's rebooting our node. Alright, the boot is successful. I'm gonna use the PuTTY to connect to our AHV. So yes, that's great. Root, and the password will be the default Nutanix password, which is Nutanix/4u. Nutanix/4u. That's the password. Default password for the Nutanix products. Okay, so now we have logged into our AHV hypervisor. One thing you have to notice, Nutanix AHV does not have a web UI or a GUI like let's say VMware ESXI. So to find out what are the virtual machines running currently on a freshly installed AHV, you can do that by running commands. So VirSH, it's one of those powerful utility you can use on the AHV level. That's all I believe. This is our domain or virtual machine, which is the CVM. So every AHV will have a CVM by default running on top of it. So this is our CVM. Let's boot inside our CVM. I'm gonna SSH Nutanix thread 92168.0.54. Yes. Again, the default Nutanix password, which is Nutanix / for you. And now we are inside our CVM. Obviously, I can do the same from the PuTTY. I should be able to communicate and connect to the CVM. So 192.1. Nutanix. And the password will be the default Nutanix password, which is Nutanix / for you. Wonderful. If you notice here, I have used 5254. This is the default IP address, which is locally used by Nutanix. So if your home lab you're using 192.168.5 /24, I suggest you change that one, because this subnet is a local subnet booked by Nutanix. So for having the Nutanix in your environment, you have to change that subnet. You have to assign Nutanix to a subnet which does not have 192.168.5.254, because Nutanix uses this subnet for internal communication. To find out that, you can do PA. If you see now on HV level, we will have 192.168 5 dot pop, 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 pop. Let me see, where is it? I believe it should be 2, and then 253 is just for the HV, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to look it up, but let's see on the Nutanix level. Yep, it's 5.2 here. We have it, and 5.254. I believe 5.253 and 3 will be used for the HV as well. Okay, so now we have our Nutanix HV installed and CVM is running. Let's just do cluster status. Make note that I'm trying to do the cluster status from the Nutanix, from the CVM, not from the HV. Ensure Genesis is running. Okay. Let's see if the Genesis is running. Status. Okay. Start. Okay, wonderful. Usually you should not receive this status over here. I will try to reboot the node, but if still the same thing is happening, that means we have to reinstall it again. I found out that is the only option I have when I'm facing this issue, because um, I don't want to waste that much time on troubleshooting. So I'll try to reboot the node, and if still the same um, issue is there, I will redeploy this node. Okay, while the node is rebooting, um, once you have your node up and running, as I said, to create a cluster now, you will have to go on you have to connect to the Nutanix CVM and use the command cluster create to create a cluster. You can use cluster space minus S, which stands for SVM, which is the old name I believe for the CVMs. So minus S and then the CVM IP. If you have only one node, so you would just use cluster minus S CVM IP and then hyphen hyphen redundancy underscore factor equals 1. Um, if you have um, created a CVM with 2 disks, you can even use redundancy factor 02. So by redundancy factor 1, that means you don't have any kind of like fault tolerance on CVM level or node level. If you have 3 nodes, you can use redundancy underscore factor as a number 2. That means it will allow you for one of the disk or one of the nodes to be down. You will have a lot of options available with the cluster create. Obviously, if you don't use any of the configuration or any of these options, you can add them later by using NCLI cluster and then the options which you want, like cluster name you can change or changing the DNS, NTP, external IP address. All of them can be changed later. Okay, let's give it a shot, another shot to our node, and let's see. Nutanix. I'm connecting to the CVM. Okay. Mm, I'm gonna just Control C, and I will use my 3 nodes which I have already prepared before. Alright, so let me just connect to one of the AHV hosts, 192. I'm connecting to HV, so the username will be root. Default Nutanix password. I will SSH to the local CVM. Um, okay, it's not allowing me for a reason. Oh, sorry. 5 4. Here have to be 5. Nutanix for you. Okay, Genesis status. As you can see, Genesis status showing me services running on the node. I'm gonna use the cluster create. I have already prepared a command. So as I said, I'm gonna put, these are my 3 CVM IPs. I'm gonna just write them down with the comma separated, and then redundancy factor I want to be 2, and then cluster external IP is this, and cluster name, I believe this should be cluster name, if I'm not mistaken, it should be, yeah, and then create at the end of the command. So let's try and see if it will give us an error or what. Okay, enter. Okay, it's gonna take a few minutes for building the cluster, and then I'm gonna pause the video, and once the cluster creation is finished. Okay, the cluster create is finished now. If I go over here, you will see that I have tried to get the cluster status. That's cluster space status, or you can filter it with the pipe out to grep -v up. A few of the services, they were down, but I have waited just for a few minutes, and now all of them are up. I can see one of my nodes is degraded, which is fine. I have redundancy factor too. I believe this is because I have a Wi-Fi. I mean, Wi-Fi connected for my gateway to the node ESXI node. So there is a lot of latency in my network, my home lab. That's why it's showing as degraded. So you can see the CVM on the IP9 and 12, they are up. I can see at the same time that lockdown mode on my cluster is disabled, which I have not enabled it. State of the cluster is a start, and the Zeus leader, it's on 12. Okay, so let's connect to our cluster IP. We can use any of these IPs, CVM's IPs, or the virtual IP which we provided during creating our cluster. So if I go over here and do 192.168.0.15, I believe, it will take me to Nutanix. At the same time, if I use any of the CVM's IP, 192.168.0.12, it will again take me to the same cluster. So you can use any of the CVM's IPs or the virtual IP which you have provided during the creation of the cluster. One more thing you have to note over here. During the cluster create command, I did not provide the DNS IPs and NTPs. So by default, the Nutanix will provide you the public IPs, which is 4444 and 8888, which are the public DNS. That's because you need to have the internet on top of your cluster. So your cluster IPs or the CVM IPs, they must be able to communicate and resolve the IPs and the names on the internet. So yeah, I believe mine are correct. I can communicate to the internet. Usually you should be able to communicate with the next.nutanix.com or my.nutanix.com, but I don't have any security, so I should be fine. So now we need to log into this cluster which you created. You will need to log in here as an admin, and then the Nutanix default password, which is Nutanix slash for you. It will ask you to change the password on the first login. So let's give a password to it. Click next. We'll log in one more time with our new password. Not now. So it will check now for the next account. If you remember, during the video, I have mentioned that you have to register for here. So hopefully you have done that by now, as it will give you registration successful for community editions. So the same email address which you have used over here and you have um, created for your my.nutanix.com or the next of the form, actually the Nutanix form, next form, the same one we will use over here inside our community edition. So we need to log in over here with the same username and password. So I'm gonna use the same email address and the same password which I'm using inside my next. Now it will check online to find out if the account is available for my email address or no. Alright, there you go. The cluster is available. How much capacity I have. Um, the cluster memory usage. um, cluster CPU usage. If you can see the resiliency of the cluster is critical. That's because, as I said, one of the nodes was showing degraded. But I believe we can wrap up the session for the cluster or creating the Nutanix on the community edition on top of ESXI. Yeah, Cassandra, it can just tolerate 0. That means one of the node is down. Um, Obviously, if you go to the hardware, there you go. One of our nodes is degraded, most probably because of the latency I have on top of my network. All right, that's it. Our cluster is up and running. One last thing I want to mention over here, the one node which I created earlier, um, 21, Nutanix, Nutanix for you, cluster status. If you see now, it should be like this. So F and the Genesis status, again, it should be like this. So I think I needed just to wait a bit longer. But by any chance, if the Genesis status is not showing you like this, or the cluster status when the freshly installed AHV is not showing you like this, even though if you have waited long enough, that means the installation was not successful. Something is missing, so I suggest you guys just redeploy the node again and not to waste much time on troubleshooting. Okay. Um, we can create the cluster over here. Obviously, I will not do that, but this can be on one node cluster um, instead of three node cluster. Okay, that would be all. Thank you very much.